the Overman Warrior Podcast.
Hi, Rich Hoffman here. I've always said that Eric Swalwell was a crook. Always remember what Eric Swalwell, the congressman out of California, really Nancy Pelosi's right-hand man in a lot of ways, her personal attack dog against Trump. Remember all those relationships over the years and how bad he was and towards Trump and Supreme Court nominations. I mean, just about everything. He was detrimental in a lot of ways. But we always knew he was a crook, and that came out with the whole Fing thing, the Chinese prostitute, the spy who didn't love him, but certainly had sex with him very openly, and everybody's wondering what kind of person Swalwell was, because his wife obviously had to know. He's running around with this Fing lady, and she was running around with a whole lot of other people as a honeypot sent by China to get the goods on these corrupt people who find themselves in positions of power, like this Congressman Swalwell. But why, all of a sudden, as he went and made an announcement that he was going to run for governor, does I think it was four women between April 9th and April 11th, 2026, came out and accused Swalwell of sexual misconduct. And this was reported by San Francisco Chronicle, CNN, UPI, and Politico. Sexual assault while intoxicated, non-consensual encounters, unsolicited, explicit photos that were sent to these girls. So it's all on their phones, so there's plenty of proof. An abuse of power with staffers, interns, and offering them political access in exchange for sex. And then on the 14th and 15th, an additional April, just a week later, a fifth woman came out and alleged a 2018 rape after being drugged. This is essentially the Cosby kind of occurrences we're seeing going on here. And who knows how many more. So there's this Chinese honeypot spy that he had sex with. And now there's these 5 women, and these are drugging their drinks, taking them out for... These are people who work for him, or he was offering them access to political power, and he's drugging them and having sex with them, and definitely abusing the relationship with them. And then he's going out and preaching against Trump and preaching against abuse of women and all kinds of progressive causes, when he is one of the most vile proponents of that kind of terror against women. Especially when he held a position of power. And everyone's scratching their heads as to how nobody on Capitol Hill knew about it. And I guarantee you everybody knew about it. And nobody said anything. So it only got exposed because he's running for governor. And some other Democrats have decided that they didn't want him to be governor. And so they knocked him off. Because they're worried that a couple Republicans are going to end up, and I told you about those two. Steve Horton is the guy I picked, and I actually had Steve Horton at my place of business to announce that he was going to run for governor, along with Vivek Ramaswamy. And I told you that over a year ago, that this was going to happen. And a lot of Democrats are just coming up to speed on the whole thing. And Eric Swalwell was a threat to the power maintaining in California. So they all knew about these things. These women have always been out there. No one said a word until when this race started getting hot. And now everyone turned against him. His friends turned against him. Everyone threw him to the wolves. Nancy Pelosi all of a sudden doesn't know where he's at with a search warrant. And everybody has amnesia. That's the most concerning part of this. It's not that it's bad enough to know that he's out there abusing these relationships with all these women, and this is going on, and it's going on much more than just this. You know, when Anna Paulina Luna shows outrage about the whole issue, Laura Boebert's been talking, and I don't know that she has a lot of room to talk based on how she's conducted her personal life. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm talking about now, Anna Paulina Luna is a class act. She's not in the same category as the rest of these people. But Marjorie Taylor Greene, you get to these power positions, you start having staffers who want to designate themselves as unique and upward mobility, and will they have sex with people who can get them power? You bet they will. Kamala Harris, that's how she got into the DA's office. That's how she got into politics. She slept her way to the top. She slept her way into getting known. One thing when you go to, whether it's your local Capitol building, where there's lots of staffers, a lot of political hopefuls who are trying to learn the ropes so they can build their own political lives. So they get involved as, they volunteer themselves as interns or staffers so they can take that move in their later years, 30s or 40s. In their 20s, they're trying to do work to get experience. And so they work in these offices. And there's many thousands of them that work for all the various representatives and the senates and the houses and state and federal legislature. There's a lot of young people. And how do you get your voice known over top of everybody else's? How do you get your name recognized as being somebody exceptional? I mean, except for exceptional work. But if you're trying to get an extra boost, you tend to compromise yourself in various ways so that people take notice of you. You end up at the dinner, you end up in somebody's party, and you get an invite to do something here, do something there. You start getting political, you start getting financial backers because someone put a good word in for you, and pretty soon you're making runs of your own. This is a major problem. And Swalwell was certainly guilty of it in mass amounts. And it's the problem of when you get power, you start having people work for you, and especially if they're women, it's awful hard for them not to get friendly and to resist the temptation not to take them out for a drink. And it's hard to go back to it shouldn't be, but it's hard to go back to your boring life, your boring wife, the person you've known for a period of time. You have all this power. Your family doesn't respect you for it. You have kids at home, and they don't worship you as a god of politics. You're just another guy sleeping on the couch and falling asleep to a football game on a Sunday afternoon to them. So when everybody's throwing all this encouragement, and they're flirting with you, and they're calling you Mr. Swalwell and Sir, it feels good. And pretty soon you're like, hey, you want to go and have a drink? Hey, what do you think about this and that? And you want to see a picture of my wiener? I mean, Anthony Weiner was doing this constantly. He was married to a very influential political advocate, a person who's now married to Alex Soros, very close to Hillary Clinton. So this is the way people who are insiders behave. It's not enough for them to have the power. It's using the power to manipulate relationships in ways that favor their animal lusts. And that's all you can say about Eric Swalwell. So the concerns were always, and Nancy Pelosi would say it's unfounded. She defended him on the Fin Fang thing. This is a Chinese spy with congressional access to a guy that was very reckless and ego-driven. And he was easy to manipulate. And that's why you got to be worried about all these girls. Not to mention that you're talking out of two sides of your mouth. On one hand, you're manipulating them and abusing your relationship with them. On the other hand, you're speaking against other people and trying to use progressive causes to show that you're so facilitating. And how could people watch him do that against Trump while they knew what he was doing himself? And all these women stayed quiet until the bat signal was put out by the Democrat Party and it said, let's go after Swalwell. He's running for governor and he's going to mess up the whole race. We got to get him out of here. So they pulled the trigger and pulled the dirt up and threw it out there. Same thing going on with Amy Acton in Ohio. The debate about, well, why are we just now finding out about all this drunken escapade fight she had with her husband in 2019? Why we've learned about it now? Why didn't we hear about it years when it happened? I mean, because she was in the DeWine administration at the time. She was the health director under the DeWine administration. Even though she was no Democrat and an abortion supporter, DeWine was trying to facilitate and bring people, show that he could reach across the aisle and work with them. And he used Amy Acton to do that, so that he could work with other people and that he was a moderate. So everybody knew, and they covered it up until it was convenient. And in this case, the story's getting out because she's running for governor, and everything's going to come out when you're running for governor. Everything. That's the way it works. That's why you have a vetting process. That's why we have free press. You want to know these things about people. But why didn't we know this about Eric Swalwell? Well, we knew it. We knew it. I knew it. A lot of people knew it, but they didn't act on it. They didn't say what they needed to say about it, and they had an obligation to it, and they concealed it from the public. So there is guilty of the problem as Eric Swalwell was in doing the act, because they concealed the act. And so you can't trust anybody in this process. But now that it's convenient for them to talk about, now these women are out there telling everybody what a trash bag Eric Swalwell is and how embarrassing it is. And it's interesting to watch them turn on their own. But don't think that it's out of a sense of justice or a sense of the women that were abused. It's happening everywhere. It's happening in vast amounts. In Capitol Hill, anywhere where there's power, it's a very tempting thing to have happen, and it takes a lot of personal integrity to resist it. And I know a lot of people who are in those positions, and they do resist temptation. They're not out there betraying their wives or their husbands, and they're pretty good, and they're good representatives. But there's a lot who do, an alarming amount, who fall for the temptations, who fall for the lifestyle. They're away from their families. They're kind of weak anyway. And Eric Swalwell certainly was that. I could see it on his face every time he spoke. He was that kind of person. So I have no doubt that he was doing this kind of stuff. He definitely falls in the category. But and when it comes to learning about it, everybody else is late to the party, and they're learning what was obvious always. And now you have to wonder how many more there are and why it's so systemic, and what do you do about it when you find out about it. And all the media out there that knew about Swalwell at the time and gave him a free pass, and Nancy Pelosi was definitely one of them. She lied to all of our faces, which we know she's a liar. But why does anybody believe anything she says, especially about how much wealth she generated through insider trading, essentially, by being an insider and knowing what was coming and going and being able to profit off that with investments. These are terrible people, have lied repeatedly, and the media has let them be that way. And they let Swalwell get away with this stuff. Everybody knew about these stories, and it's not a big surprise now. And that's what really is alarming, is why now, and why is it so coordinated, and how can that machine be turned on so easily? And then how can they lie to your face willingly for such a long period of time? And it tells you really how much lies do go on, and it's only convenient to tell the truth when it serves these powered interests. And that's the lesson you need to know with Eric Swalwell. Not so much that these 5 women, and probably a lot more, and Fin Fang, there's a 6th. I'm sure there's a lot more than that. These are recent dates. This is why he's preaching about Trump being a womanizer, which it's turned out to be the complete opposite. Just like Democrats do with everything, the things they accuse other people of doing are the things they're doing themselves. And that was certainly the case with Eric Swalwell. What a scumbag, complete dirtball. But he's just the tip of the iceberg, and there's a lot of of reporting that is not occurring because a political narrative is desired to preserve a power structure. Certainly the free press is not free to say whatever they want. They are very coordinated in their efforts, and that should scare everybody. And that's the evidence that comes out in this story. Everybody knew, but nobody said anything until it was convenient for them. And now everybody else knows. Everybody should listen a lot more. I try to tell them, and they scratch their heads and they say, "Oh, that's a conspiracy theorist. Oh, you just don't like Democrats." And look, I don't like Democrats for a reason, because they're generally vile, up to no good, and behave like this most of the time. They all have. Most of the Democrats I've ever known have some sort of stuff in the closet like this. And some Republicans do too. There's a lot of people who can't handle power. But when you find out about them, you got to reveal them. I mean, the Cindy Carpenter case in Butler County, Ohio, she couldn't handle it. She couldn't handle the power. She went out and abused her power, and we've called her out for it. And, so her normal Republican endorsement got pulled and given to somebody else. That's how you're supposed to do it. But these Democrats knew what he had been doing. And only when he got out over his skis and ran for governor, it looked like he had a chance, or that him being in the race was going to cause a couple other Republicans to get better ground, like Steve Hilton. Only then did they take a move on behalf of the women. And now nobody has. Eric Swalwell doesn't have any friends anymore. Everybody's denying. Suddenly he has 1 million Judases around him. Not that he's Jesus Christ, but he's learned the perimeters of betrayal very up close and personally, because they all knew what he was doing, and they revealed it once it was convenient to knock him off as a political rival. And that's the game of politics, and he should have known better, but he didn't. Anyway, Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe. Make tomorrow a better day. If you ever read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day. See you later.
Thank you for listening. Coming soon, the politics of heaven.